Happy Friday. Welcome to Simon's Trading Channel. Hope you've had a good day. Friday, of course, being the time when CME closes its weekly candle, which is going to be a bit uninspired. I'll come on to that in a moment. But before I get into the price action, thank you for joining me. If you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. That would be absolutely marvelous. Now, we're going to start off with a 4-hour, which you can see quite nicely, really, over the last few days, how things have definitely changed a little bit for Bitcoin. So if I just take the Bollinger Band off because it makes it a bit clearer. So you can see by drawing a trend line of the mighty Bitcoin the whole way up here from when it started to cool off after the last impulsive move, which was back in the beginning of November-ish. It continued to grind its way up and along the way just put in a sequence of higher lows. I haven't done that entirely accurately. But the point is, the trend line, which I drew on ages ago, um, just picks out that clear uptrend. Now, that probably has been negated a bit. Now, it doesn't mean that Bitcoin is now going to, start trending down in any significant way. But what it means is that there's just been a bit of a change in or Bitcoin's in its behavior, if you like. And right now it's in a massive range. And you can see, obviously, the range high being, no surprise, 100K, and the range low being, well, it's about 92, but, low 90s. So $10,000 range, which is bouncing in between. And it's doing that on 4-hour daily, not weekly yet, but 4-hour and daily timeframes. And so for a meaningful move in either direction, therefore you need some closures of either above 100 or below 92. And clearly it's closer to 92 than it is 100 at the moment. So probably got a bit more of a downside bias. Now, if I put the Bollinger Band back on, you can see, yeah, it's relatively low volatility here on the 4-hour. But the price has been living below the midpoint of the Bollinger Band really since yesterday. And therefore, if volatility was to expand on the 4-hour, it's more likely that will be a move to the downside. This would also be the third tap of sort of 92 if Bitcoin comes down a little bit lower. It hasn't tapped it yet. Will this be the third knock on the door that then opens it and behold some more downside price action? I don't know. In fact, nobody knows because no one can predict the future. From the point of view of momentum, you can see on the MACD here that on the 4-hour time frame, it certainly is to the downside. The momentum is to the downside. It's going to continue falling as well, so continue with downside posturing as long as Bitcoin's closing 4 hours basically below 96,000, which it's a little bit away from at the moment. So I think more downside on the 4-hour time frame is the name of the game. But interestingly, you can see that momentum. So despite this basically being sideways price action, from a momentum point of view, there has been gaining momentum. So I do wonder if something like this may occur. Now, this is completely hypothetical. Let's just say Bitcoin does break down. Let's just say it comes down into the high 80s somewhere for a happy new year and then turns back up. I wouldn't be surprised if the MACD reflects the same thing where the MACD is divergent to the quite divergent, but the MACD gaining momentum overall, even though the price is losing momentum. So that to me, if there is a downside move, be very suggestive if the MACD doesn't get below these values over here, if there is another downside move. So there's a lot of ifs and buffs, ifs and buts, but I think you get what I mean. So I don't know that's going to happen where I just drew on the chart. It's just an idea. 4-hour momentum, definitely to the downside at the moment. Skipping up to the daily before we check in on the weekly on CME. So you can see the same range. You can see nicely the Bollinger Band midpoint, the 20 SMA picks out 100k, which is the top of the range, and then the bottom of the Bollinger Band picks out the 92. So it's just been oscillating for the last week or so in between those two areas. And yeah, it is coming towards the bottom of that area at the moment. It's getting perilously close to for the MACD on the daily to cross the zero line. And yeah, I'd say this is a fairly accurate number now because it's so close to the zero line, about 91 and change, say 91 and a half. Well, that's pretty close to the bottom of the Bollinger Band, right? So breaking the bottom of the Bollinger Band and getting volatility expansion on the daily to the downside would make sense then to flip my predetermined momentum on the daily also to the downside when the MACD crosses the zero line. That's if it does. If it does. Remember, the MACD has not crossed the zero line since it crossed above it back over here in the middle of September. So there has been upside momentum from a MACD point of view since the 16th, 17th of September. Prior to that, it was a bit flip-floppy, right, because it was just range play. Interesting. It probably is time for it to cool off a bit. You can see if you look at the daily time frame all the way from 25k, whenever the MACD has crossed to the above the zero line, so here, then there's been significant upside. When it's crossed below the zero line, most of the time it's just been very small corrective moves. And then it crosses above again here, nice big move. And then, crosses below there, bit of a pullback. This was rangy, so there were no big moves either side. And then when it crossed above here, which was that September the 16th, 17th, there was a big move to the upside. So probably is about time that Bitcoin cooled off a bit on the daily time frame. Will that cool off reflect a move back down to mid-80s that everyone's expecting? Or will it maybe just come down to, say, high 80s? Again, nobody knows. But I think there probably is a bit more to come from this pullback. I don't know, but the momentum's starting to look that way. It's not going to take too much for the daily momentum to flip as well. So there we are. Right, over on CME and a weekly time frame. So you can see this is a weekly time frame starting at the end of 2022, 2 years so far within the bull run, and looks like there's going to be some continuation. No surprise, the last few weeks have basically been sideways, and also no surprise that this week has effectively been a predominantly downside week with some good price action to the upside initially, which was then sold off. It is starting to look a bit like a top on the weekly, but you could equally say that it's just ranging, which totally valid, but it's starting to look a little bit like a top. There is a massive CME gap coming in mid to high 70s. I don't really see that happening at the moment, based on the price action on the lower time frames, but you never know. But very much trend to the upside. You can see MACD is way to the upside. There isn't even any divergence on the MACD. But it is going to have a chance to turn red, i.e. start pointing down, even though momentum's to the upside. And it will get that red color if Bitcoin closes this week on CME, which will happen in 2.5 hours, below 96, let's call it 750. I think that's probably quite likely. So, maybe a bit more sideways and down for another, I don't know, maybe, let's just say for another week after this week. Hopefully more sideways than down. Right, I think that'll do. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. If so, give me a thumbs up, like and subscribe. And have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday. Take care. Bye, guys.